We need those positive vibes to be happening so the learning can happen.
Yes. So I was having a little read about the information behind motivation, and it says kids are most motivated when three things are met. That is, they have autonomy, which means they have choice. Competence, they feel capable. That's really important. And
okay, our next strategy, speaking of maths textbooks, is ditching the bookwork. I've worked in schools where there's had to be an element of bookwork with every math lesson.
Oh, every math lesson.
Again,
wow.
A hill I'm willing to die on.
Rainbow Sky Creations acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we record this podcast on, the Darrell and Woodjuk Noongar people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
Hello, welcome back to Rainbow Skies for Teachers. I am Ashley.
And I'm Alicia, and we're so glad you've dropped by today.
We are so glad because today we're talking about how to keep your students motivated when it comes to maths lesson.
Yes, and I think you could take a bit of the information we shared today as incorporated into really any subject on how to keep kids motivated. So we'll talk about some specific maths activities that we know are great, but also why they're so awesome and a success in your learning.
Exactly. We're going to talk about the premise behind the activities and what makes them motivational for kids. And we can say from our own experience in the classroom, like these activities that we're going to share with you today, we've tested out in our own classrooms, but we test them out with our own kids at home. And if you've got kids at home that are happy to do learning activities, I feel like that is a winner.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't beat when you test it out, you see the kids have success. That being said too, we've tested these out with kids in our classroom where we've had lots of kids and we have the same results. So we're not just making this up today.
Exactly. So the aim of this episode is to share with you some ways to keep your kids motivated in maths and enjoying maths, because we know that when kids are enjoying themselves, the learning follows. We need those positive vibes to be happening so the learning can happen.
Yes. So I was having a little read about the information behind motivation, and it says kids are most motivated when three things are met. That is, they have autonomy, which means they have choice. Competence, they feel capable. That's really important. And relatedness, they feel connected. So if you've got those three things aligning, you've got the perfect trifecta for student motivation. And even if you've got one or two components, you're heading in the right direction, which is great.
Yeah. So what were those three components again?
We want autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So are they feeling connected? Do they feel capable? And they have choice. Now, I find in mathematics specifically, that competence piece is so important.
Oh, yeah.
Do they feel capable?
Yeah, it's that confidence building, isn't it? The more confident they feel, the more they're going to give things an actual try. Because we do have those kids in our class that have that wall up when it comes to maths and they're like, oh, nope, not even going to give it a try. I'm not good at this. I don't know how.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll notice that we love talking about things like games, which is like your choice. Even that can add that element of feeling connected because it's a similar game that they're aware of. And we like to pitch it at the level that the kids feel capable at. So all that we're going to share today is touching on all these three pieces that we need to motivate students.
Yeah. So let's dive into our first activity, which is one of our most favorite ones. These are our code crackers. So they're kind of like an escape room where kids need to solve a series of math clues in order to crack the code, to work out the mystery, to solve the problem. So they have like a little story which gets kids involved and engaged, sets the stage. And then they need to go off and answer these activities. Now, they can complete these together in partners or small groups. If you've got those kids that want to do it alone, they can. There's areas of challenge and then areas that are a little bit easier, which is great for them. But also the thing I love about this the most, and I've noticed this with my students and my own children, because my own children test all of these for Alicia and I, and they find the mistakes for us. So I get them to do it. And then if the code doesn't work out, we're like, great, we've made a mistake. Let's go and fix that up. They're the little proofreaders for us. But what I've noticed is that they enjoy it so much they don't even realize they are doing math. And majority of the activities, we've tried to include all sorts of different skills, 2D shapes, algorithms.
I was just doing one. Yeah, I was just doing one with balancing scales, fractions,
Exactly. So there's loads of different skills that they're practicing. They're working on that fluency, but they don't really realize that they're doing the math because they're more motivated by the solving or the cracking of the code.
Yeah, it really does get them immersed in that code cracker. They're learning by doing. They are applying skills that they've already learnt, hopefully. So make sure you're not just giving it to these kids and they haven't learned anything about fractions. So we like to think of these code crackers as a great way of consolidating students' learning and giving them a chance to flex their muscles with different maths concepts. And it's not just one repeating over and over. They're having to switch between different concepts, which is a challenge in itself. And I do love the element too that I feel most kids will pair themselves up, but there will be an element of competitiveness if you have kids who like to be the first to solve the code.
Yes. My very first class, they were so competitive. Oh my gosh. They would totally been racing to finish. So Alicia, like say you're going, great, I want to use these code crackers in my classroom. I want to try one with my kids, see if they like it. We have some free ones actually. We'll link in the show notes.
Yes. So we have free ones. You are right, Ash. Now they are Christmas ones, but look, in our household, we're wearing Christmas tops still and it is April. So, you know, it can be Christmas any time of the year. So you could just mix things up and really throw your kids off and they'll be like, what? Is it Christmas soon? Or we do have a big event coming up in May and we're going to be doing a gift with purchase, which will be some very cool space code crackers, which does align a bit with what's been happening with space travel and Artemis 2 and reaching the furthest place humans have been in space. So yeah, keep your ears peeled to the podcast. You'll be the first to hear about it.
Yeah, that's when our sale event is happening. So keep your eyes on podcasts, the socials or your inbox. You will know and then you'll get a gift with purchase when we have that sale. So that's exciting. So code crackers. Alicia, if you were going to do these in your classroom, I think I got started asking you this question and then we completely sidetracked.
That's fine.
How would you implement them in your classroom? Like what would you do if you want to give one a go?
I would get one and I would have a look and go, all right, what skills are we covering? And I'll go, awesome, we're going to have that all done within week 2 of this term. And then the really cool thing is that we have a story for every single code cracker. So I would be getting up the PowerPoint that we've got and I'd be setting the scene. And look, some teachers can get quite extravagant, like bring that connection piece in. I think we've done one for Earth Day and it is the planet Earth has got upset and he has left a message. And you could get a bit creative and ruffle a few things, leave some of the pictures around of being like, oh, who's come in here and trashed the classroom? Think of that as your provocation. You are getting your students interested. You are luring them in for them going, what? There's a mystery. What's happened? And then you read them the story and be like, you guys are becoming the maths detectives. Are you ready to take on this challenge? And you'll have some kids who are maybe a bit apprehensive, not sure about their competency. And then you'll have those who will be like, yeah, come on, let's go with this. And you could choose to do your first one as a test run with the class, and you could do it as you model through it together. Or you could just dive straight in and you could be like, all right, here's the first clue, everyone. Let's solve that. Here's the second clue, third clue, fourth clue. Some of them have fifth and bonus clues. So you could drip feed it as your first one. And if you've got a few more, once the kids have the idea of it, you could let them take the lead and give them all the clues at once, because the really cool thing is, what do we do with the clues, Ash? It doesn't matter what order.
She's teaching me. It doesn't matter what order you do them in. Generally, it doesn't matter what order you do them in. You'll get to the right answer in the end.
Yeah, because we know kids work at different paces, and we know some kids might go and be like, oh, I want to do the addition before I do fractions. So we've factored that in. So it doesn't matter. You could even split up the different clues around the classroom. Look, there are a lot of ways to doing it, but I would say for your first one, do a bit of scaffolding, build a bit of suspense, and work through it together.
If you've got older kids too, like say you've got primary kids and they really aren't super motivated, like maybe you could say, we're working towards doing a code cracker on Friday.
Yeah.
Friday, our maths lesson is going to be a code cracker. They are going to be so excited. Once they do one and they see how fun it is, they're going to be really excited to do it. Or another way that kind of comes to mind for me is setting it up and doing it as a class and then having a whole heap of them as fast finishers. Like they would be really great for your fast finishers.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would suck a little bit for the kids that are a bit slow workers, because kids really do love these. So I kind of feel a bit sorry for sorry for the kids that are a little slow, suggesting to have them as fast finishers, but it's definitely an option.
I just would feel as well, I remember many moons ago, we were walking out of the cinema and we'd just watched The Sixth Sense. So with Bruce Willis, and I remember my friend walking out of the cinema, and it was back in the day where people would line up ready for the next lot to go in. My friends walked down and gone, I can't believe he was dead the whole time.
Oh my God.
And the people at the front of the line just looked at her and I was like, oh, really? That's not how I interpreted it. But you know how you just go, I could see my daughter doing that, being like, yeah, I know who the code cracker is. I worked it out. And would tell everyone.
It's Mrs. Reynolds stole
Yes.
the pavlova.
So, yeah, word of warning, that could happen.
Yes, actually, I did not think of that. I feel like one thing teachers are really good at is thinking 5 steps ahead in case something like what could happen. Alicia, you got that gift more than me.
Oh, I'm thinking of the party pooper who's going to ruin it for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. We also have them in all different themes too. So, those theme days that they're quite hectic. You might have a school assembly or some sort of parade, or you want to make it a fun day because it's a theme. Code crackers are the perfect math lesson. Just a lot in there. Like Alicia said, we've got them for Earth Day. We've got them for Harmony Day, kindness, Christmas.
Yeah. Look, even my pre-primary kid, she's chomping at the bit to do the grade 1 and 2 ones. So can you tell we love them?
We do.
So what would be something else that would be a great way to keep kids motivated, Ash?
Well, I'm going to talk old school for a bit and talk about bringing back some of those old school things that kids have loved for generations. And 2 games come to mind when I think of this, and it's actually really funny. One of these games I had out at my in-laws, I took them over because I had my niece over there and my son, and I wanted to take some photos of these in action. And my in-laws looked and was like, what? Do kids still play with these? And they are chatterboxes. I know in the US, sometimes they're called cootie catchers, or they can be called fortune tellers. We recently went on a flight to Japan, and my 6-year-old requested that I print out a whole heap for her. And we made them in the airport and on the plane. Some of them were not at her ability. We were doing times table ones and addition ones. But the times table one, she got her brother and sister to answer them, and me and my husband. And we realized that I was the best at the times tables. But chatterboxes are great for that fluency practice. We've got a whole heap of different ones that you can print out. Again, fabulous for fast finishers. Fabulous to take that learning from school to home. Fabulous for those interconnections with kids, so they're talking to each other, answering with each other. They're all self-checking, so you don't need an adult there. Anything else you want to say about chatterboxes?
So much so that we've been making modified ones at our house where my kids, they find the maths ones not so exciting as 4 and 5-year-olds. So we've started making ones where we're practicing our phonics, and Ollie's practicing her numbers and counting, and actually just the hand the fine motor skills. That takes a lot of her brain power. And then inside we open it and we do jump 5 times or howl like a wolf. We've got really random ones that we've been making these holidays. Look, think of it as it is a game per se, right? So why do kids love games? So think about it when kids experience small wins. So when they're doing the chatterboxes, then they're getting to that bit where it's, oh, what's it going to be? And they then have success with that answer. Their little brains are going to release dopamine, the feel-good chemical, which reinforces their learning. So every time they're having these small wins, they're getting immediate feedback that they're on the right track, or perhaps they need to practice this a bit more. They're having these small achievable challenges at the same time because they don't know what's going to come. It could be 8 times 5, which they're not sure of, but they're all on top of 5 times 4 and they're making that progress. So think about these chatterboxes has that element there where there's science happening in the brain for why these are really successful and motivating for students, just games in general.
Okay, explain another old school game for us. This is one of your favorites.
I do love a bit of dots and boxes. I've actually gone down a bit of a rabbit hole just playing random games on my phone. Shouldn't, but I do. I get stuck into this dopamine vortex where I'm like, oh my God, I've forgotten I have a family. So dots and boxes. I don't play this one on my phone. So it's set up in a grid formation and you've got dots on each of the corners of the squares and they have to solve. We've got addition, multiplication, division. We've even got it for shapes and angles. So when they are getting an answer, they connect a dot to make one line. So they'll fill in one side of the square. If you fill in all 4 sides of the square, you get to capture that square. So there is strategy in this game. there is also mathematical skill to this game, because if you're not getting the answer right, you're not getting a chance to overthrow your competitor. So yeah, once again, that dopamine's kicking in. The kids are having success. You're pitching it at a level that they feel capable of. You're giving them student choice if they want to try that level, but perhaps they want to up level. And it's a game format that they become familiar with, that they might connect with of, oh, I've played Connect 4. I kind of get the gist of this.
It doesn't take long for them to get the gist of how to play. Once they've kind of done a couple of lines and they realize that they can join up the boxes, they're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was testing it out with my 5-year-old. Well, like, yeah. Even Olive, my younger one, she was like, what are you guys playing? I was like, we'll work together, Olive, and we'll try and beat Lena. She'll hate it.
We'll put all of the range of those in the show notes. We'll just put a link to all of the different dots and boxes so you can kind of see which ones would be best. But we've got a whole heap of different ones for different age groups. They are a great old school game too that kids love, that we've just put a little learning twist on.
Yes, absolutely. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is one that we can't speak enough about. We just love it so much.
I know, drum roll. You're probably nodding your head in the car going, I know what they're going to say.
Cards.
Cards for the win. They are the best. Kids are motivated by them. Why? Look, we could go into the science of why we think they are motivated by them. The colours are great. They don't have extra writing on the cards. We've gone on about cards so much on this podcast. But kids love these games. And they're worth getting into your classroom just to see kids be motivated for maths and practicing their math skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Think of it in terms of like the cognitive load for them to maybe look at a playing card and be like, there's numbers in the corner, all these spades and hearts in the middle. But with the card, it's very simple. There's 4 colours. There's a number in the middle. It doesn't take much thinking for the students to ascertain information when using those cards. So that's a great thing. We've just thought of so many ideas, haven't we?
Well, we've got ideas with the cards for all the different strands in maths, but we're actually, and I don't know if we've said this before.
I don't think we have.
We are in the middle of creating version 4 of So far we've got kindergarten pack, grade 1 and 2, grade 3 and 4, grade 5 and 6. 3 different versions. And people ask, like, what are the difference between the versions? They're all different activities.
They are.
In the middle of creating version 4. In fact, I was at a cafe this morning working away on the grade 3 and 4 pack. There are some really awesome activities in that pack.
Oh, this is what happens when you go away on holidays. You have time to breathe and you come up with crazy ideas.
You do. So, cards are always a winner if you want to get your kids motivated in maths. Pull them out. We actually have some activities that you can try if you kind of want to give it a little try before you invest.
Mm-hmm.
It comes with a video of us explaining some different activities. So we'll pop the link to that in the show notes too.
Yeah, and we cover all from, Ash amazingly covers all from kindy through to grade 6, and then we give you a few little tasters that you can try in the classroom.
All right, next strategy to keep your kids motivated in maths.
The one we've been talking about that we've embedded in these activities is really giving your kids student choice. I think sometimes we might limit students' abilities or we might not challenge them enough. And I think the more that you incorporate a bit of student choice into your classroom, you start to see the kids who are ready to flex their muscles. Or, to be honest, sometimes kids haven't been given an awful lot of choice. They've kind of just been told a lot what to do. And for some kids, it's a bit of a new muscle that they have to grow with, oh, what do you mean? I can choose which game I want to play?
Even with the cards, obviously they're pulling out cards to practice different skills, but they're randomized, right? So say they're doing an addition board and they pull out a 4 and a 2 and they have to add those numbers together in one of the really simple activities. It gives them that autonomy without the teacher saying, right, we're adding 4 and 2, we're adding 8 and 1. They're getting that sense, it's almost a false sense, but they're getting that sense that they're able to make the choices and do it themselves. They've got a bit of ownership over their own learning.
Yeah, think about it. It's reducing the pressure. It's it's lowering the fear of getting it wrong. And if they get it wrong, they can work on mistakes happen and where did I go wrong and how can I fix it? Think about it when it's low pressure and it's low risk, you start to feel safe. And when you're feeling safe in a situation, that's when you're going to start to want to challenge yourself and be like, okay, this is a safe space for me to jump that little bit further if we're talking figuratively. That's the power of these kind of activities where we're using cards. And we've tried to make tasks that cover an array of concepts and kind of don't box in just to be a number generator of it, using of how we can kind of see how, I guess in a way, maths is everywhere. And I think some people might be like, oh, why do your versions have so many different concepts? Because in all honesty, when Ash created version 1, we didn't really even know we could create a version 2. No. And then a version 3, and then a version 4. So it's a mishmash of real goodness that we come up with at that time in season when we're creating these packs.
Even we have emails from teachers saying, oh, I'd really love it if you could create a activity around this. And we've done that because that's what people want and need in their classrooms. So,
and we go, oh, wow, we didn't even think we could do that. And it gets us thinking outside the box, which is a really cool thing, which is what really, maths is about, of like, there's no just one way of getting to an answer. So gotta love cards.
I know, we've kind of gone back to cards when we were talking about student choice, but
we were. I know, sorry.
In everything that we've spoken about so far, student choice has kind of been embedded and threaded through, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
And as you said earlier, and I think that this is an important point to kind of take away, is that student choice doesn't necessarily mean like it's a free-for-all. It might just be a small element where the students have a choice in something. It might just be a little tweak. For example, the chatterboxes. If we've got our multiplication chatterboxes out, perhaps the students choose which multiplication fact they're working on. Do they feel confident just doing their 2 times tables? Are they really wanting to challenge themselves and do their 8 times tables? It's just little tiny tweaks that we can make without saying like this is just a free-for-all lesson the students get to choose. Because I know that's completely overwhelming as a teacher.
Oh, that's chaos. And the kids feel like they don't have boundaries and they're off. Yeah. And you might be saying, oh, look, my school makes us have maths books. I know I've worked at schools where each kid has a maths textbooks and you're like, how do I incorporate student choice with that? And maybe it is for that section, there are 10 questions and you go, the kids pick just 3 of them to do. You pick the 3 you want to do. Or it could be that group, you say to them, you only need to do the sections 1 and 2. You guys can skip section 1, just do section 4. Sometimes I think we limit our thinking on it. We might be like, oh, especially if you're a rule follower and a people pleaser, this can be really confronting. But remember, you are kind of paving the path of the journey of the learners in your classroom. In essence, out of every single person in your school, you know those kids the best on how they're tracking with their learning. And if someone's going to come in and question you and be like, why did they only complete X, Y, Z? You'd be like, well, that's all they needed to do to prove to me that they're on the right track.
Yeah.
Back yourself.
I hate those mental maths books. I feel like I could do a whole podcast episode and do a massive rant on why I don't like them. I feel like Alicia could stick up for the mental maths books and say, no, they're not so bad because of this and this and this. But yeah, that's a hill I'm willing to die on, but we won't get into that now.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Watch this space. What's coming?
Yes. Okay. Our next strategy, speaking of maths textbooks, is ditching the bookwork. I've worked at schools where there's had to be an element of bookwork with every math lesson.
Oh, every math lesson.
Again,
wow.
A hill I'm willing to die on. Not needed, not necessary.
Yes. I'd probably just say, can I just have a maths textbook instead of having to, yeah, because I would just sneakily incorporate it, but not do it nearly as much as they think I should be doing it. When I say should, like the administrators. But then again, no book. Yes. Okay. So backtracking.
Yeah.
So you are required to do paperwork. So let's go with the complete opposite. No bookwork.
Yeah. Things like using a mini whiteboard instead of writing the answers in your book. Or doing an activity where students, instead of answering a worksheet, actually I used to call this an active worksheet back years, like 10 years ago. I don't know why I did. I cut up one worksheet that the kids were required to do, stuck it up around the classroom with blue tack, and they just went round and answered the questions that way. Just adds that movement, again, that choice of where they start, where they finish. We've got different activities where they're doing investigations around the room, something like that. instead of bookwork, something like using your Unomats instead of bookwork, something like using your chatterboxes instead of bookwork. There's loads of different things you can do instead of kids having to sit down and write in their books. Now, if you're at a school where you're like me and you had to, one way I got around it was we would do a little journal. And that sounds annoying, but it was like a really brief, a kind of
what I learned intention.
Yeah. And that's kind of how
actually
we got around it.
That's not too bad if you think about it. One, we know kids learn best by doing, not being told. So you've got them moving around, they're doing. But them actually reflecting on their mathematical learning, I'd probably say that's a piece that is not utilized enough. And remember, when you have that time to write it down, or you're retrieving the information, really. They've done the activity. They're retrieving that information of what they've just done for the last 45 minutes. So they're having to pull that information out of their brain. And that's going to actually store better memory for learning that. So it's actually a really good fit. I mean, that also works well with the kind of activities we have with the games that we do and, you know, number facts and quick recall, and they're having to retrieve information. So the more you do it, the more your muscle memory grows in learning it. So actually, I think that's actually a really cool piece you got there.
Okay. A good thing came out of something that was a little bit hectic.
Yeah.
But we've all worked in schools where different things are hectic.
Yeah, I think you utilized it very smartly. You didn't really even know it. Well done, you.
Thank you. Okay, the last idea we have here is it's all about that autonomy piece again and that control over learning by getting the kids to track their own progress themselves.
Yes.
Now, what I mean by this is they're actually seeing their own growth in this. So they're looking at what they're learning, how they're going, something like weekly. I know lots of teachers do weekly fluency, maybe not tests, but weekly fluency tasks. We've got speedy numbers where kids are doing that weekly fluency and they're able to see their growth. It's a really great way to track their growth. I actually saw somebody on TikTok the other day. I think her name is Teaching in Glitter and Gold. Anyway, she was getting her kids to track progress, and then she got them to plot it on a graph, and then it was a line graph, and then they could see how their progress was going on a graph. And I was like, that's so cool, because you're putting your maths into real life. It's a visual so that they can see it. And also she was using it to teach kids that, you know, learning isn't always linear. Sometimes it goes down a little bit. Sometimes it increases. But overall, you're going to see an increase. And yeah, I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, that's a really good life skill to incorporate into it. I used to, when I gave a maths test, I would sometimes give the maths test back to them and give them a chance to fix their answers in a different coloured pencil to be like, you might have actually learnt something in the last 2 weeks since it's taken me to mark this maths test. I know immediate feedback is important. It wasn't always like that. But even you could give them a test at the beginning. I know you do pre-tests and post-tests and all these tests, but you could give them one that you might have given them a big one at the end of term 1. And maybe at the end of term 2, you give it back to them and be like, look at everything you got wrong. There's some kids who are like, I didn't get anything wrong. But look at your test and see if there's anything you would have done differently and see.
Yeah. And they're tracking their own progress and it's giving them that ownership.
Yeah. Being like, you have control of this situation. It's not beyond you. And I think sometimes kids might feel like, maybe I did as a kid, of like, I didn't feel like I had that much power. And I think that's what we want as teachers. We really want to kind of empower our students, not to be entitled little beeps, but to know that they have power and control of their situation. Any other ideas you have for tracking progress, like let us know. I feel like this is one that could be a bit controversial, like on how you track it. I think whatever you choose to do, it's for that student.
Yes.
It's, it's
probably something worth talking about, like putting up a wall and having kids' names move. I don't know.
Yeah, and stickers and... for me, whenever I was tracking progress, it was something in the kids' books. It was usually like at the back of their book or like a sheet of paper in their folder. It was something for them to reflect on, and it was their choice if they wanted to share that with their peers. And it wasn't, if I notice I have some little nosy parkers who just want to know what everyone else is, and I'd pull that kid aside and be like, it's not your place. Yeah. If they choose to divulge their business, it's their choice. But stop being so curious and being a detective. Let's go give you a code cracker. Get out of here.
I love it. redirect in the most positive way possible.
Absolutely. So there you have it.
Keeping kids motivated in maths. Give us a rundown.
We touched on code crackers, chatterboxes, dots and boxes, so games, old school, nostalgia. God, gotta love nostalgia. Cards, student choice, no bookwork, and track progress themselves. And going back to that beautiful trifecta that you're looking for to keep kids motivated, you're looking for them to have choice, them to feel capable, and to feel connected. If you've got those three pieces working, you are nailing it. Well done, you.
You sure are. Okay, that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, leave us a 5-star review. We would absolutely love that because it helps the podcast get out to other teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you liked anything we chatted about, it's all in the show notes. Any freebies, go find them there. And until next time, there are rainbows ahead, my friend.
And together,
and together, we're unstoppable.
Bye.
Later, Gators. Thanks for choosing to listen to Rainbow Skies for Teachers, the go-to show dedicated to teachers who want to make a big difference in education.
If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a 5-star review or share the episode with a friend. Because together we're
unstoppable.